Why was everyone staring at her like she didn't belong? The laughter had already started before she even reached the courtyard. "Hey medic, where? The field hospital you got lost from." Captain Maverick Braxton's voice boomed through the air, sharp, confident, dripping with mockery. Around him, the NATO training compound fell into that kind of silence that always comes before humiliation. 200 of the world's toughest soldiers turned toward the small figure standing in the morning light. Harlow Thorne, 24, a backpack too small for the weight she carried, both literally and otherwise. Her gray t-shirt clung to her from the humid Virginia air. Khaki pants faded, wrinkled, and boots that looked too old for the newness of this place. Blonde hair pulled tight, a few curls escaping to brush against freckled cheeks. Blue eyes steady, but quiet. To them, she looked like a lost student. To her, this was exactly how it was supposed to look. Braxton's grin widened. He was built like the kind of man who'd never been told no, tall, broad, jaw like steel. The kind of soldier whose presence made others straighten instinctively. He turned to his crew like a man hosting a show. "Logistics training," he repeated, pretending disbelief. "This is NATO elite selection, sweetheart, not summer camp for supply clerks." Laughter erupted. Phones came out, recordings began. For the onlookers, it was entertainment. For Harlow, it was camouflage. Nobody could suspect the invisible when they were too busy laughing at the obvious. 18 minutes from that moment, the gray shirt, the smirk, the humiliation, everything would change. But for now, the mask had to stay in place. She shifted her backpack higher on her shoulder, voice calm, unshaken. "I registered for logistics training, sir." The "sir" landed softly, not out of fear but precision. She learned early. The quieter you speak, the more people reveal when they underestimate you. Braxton slapped his knee, a showman feeding his audience. "Logistics," he repeated, feigning sympathy. "Who let this one through security? Standards are dropping faster than my patience." The courtyard roared with laughter. Someone actually started live streaming it. Behind the crowd, Lieutenant Paisley Aldridge stepped out of the administration building. Auburn hair, uniform crisp, posture straight, every bit the model officer. She spotted Harlow and stopped mid-stride. For a second, just one, something flickered in her expression. Recognition, concern, maybe even fear. But Harlow didn't notice. She was setting her pack down, adjusting her footing, shoulder width apart, weight balanced, posture aligned. It wasn't a pose, it was instinct. For the first time, someone watching closely might have realized that stance wasn't taught in logistics school. "Let it go, Braxton," Paisley called out, voice firm but measured. First day nerves hit everyone different. He turned, still smiling. "Lieutenant Mom to the rescue. Don't worry, we'll take good care of your little duckling." More laughter, but Paisley's jaw tightened. She'd seen that look before, not the mockery, but Harlow's stillness. That unshakable calm under pressure that only came from one kind of life. The kind lived behind enemy lines. Still, Harlow said nothing. She just adjusted the oversized uniform Sergeant Knox tossed at her, 2 sizes too big, sleeves swallowing her wrists. Knox, the supply sergeant, gave a half-smirk. "Hope you're not afraid of getting dirty, princess." Harlow caught the fabric without fumbling. Her fingers ran across the seams, thumb tracing the thread count, eyes nodding reinforcement points, zipper type, manufacturer origin. It looked like idle curiosity. It was. She was cataloging, always cataloging. "Something wrong with the uniform, sweetheart," Blackwood sneered, appearing beside her, his arms tattooed with unit crests from every theater of war he'd ever bragged about surviving. "No, Sergeant," she replied softly, "just checking the specifications." Blackwood laughed. "Specifications, it's clothing, not rocket science." But none of them noticed how her gaze had already mapped the room: 3 exits, 2 windows, 1 concealed hatch behind a rack of MREs. Observation time, less than 5 seconds. Enough to memorize, not enough to draw suspicion. The live stream ticked past 300 viewers. Braxton gave his camera a grin. "You're witnessing history, folks. Somebody thought a logistics clerk belonged with NATO's best. This'll be comedy gold." But while the crowd laughed, Paisley watched. Her instincts, sharpened by years in field operations, whispered a single truth. Harlow Thorne was not who she claimed to be. The weapons inspection came next, rows of rifles gleaming under the sterile fluorescent light. The armory smelled of gun oil, metal, and tension. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, 20 years, countless tour, stood over the inspection tables like a priest guarding relics. "Every one of you touches that weapon like your life depends on it, because one day it will." Trainees stepped forward one by one, each demonstrating basic handling. When Harlow's name was called, Braxton leaned toward his crew, grinning. "Watch this. I bet she holds it backwards." She approached the M4 like it was unfamiliar, grip hesitant, stance uncertain. Even Rodriguez's brow furrowed, the kind of expression reserved for people who needed babysitting. He reached to correct her posture and froze, because in the space of a single breath, her hands shifted. Grip firm, feet planted, barrel angle precise. A brass check, executed with muscle memory so refined it looked like choreography. Click. Safety off. Chamber clear. Ready. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Rodriguez's trained eye didn't miss it. That wasn't learned, that was remembered. "Where'd you learn to do that?" he asked quietly. "Basic training, Sergeant," she replied evenly, eyes forward. He stared at her for a beat, longer than regulation allowed. "Basic training didn't teach that, not like that." From across the room, Colonel Marcus Ashford was watching too, a man built from 30 years of military discipline, his expression a study in control. But inside, he felt the first stirrings of curiosity. He'd seen her file that morning, logistics specialist, 3 years of administrative postings, but half her service history was redacted, entire sections sealed above his clearance level. Now he was watching a supposed clerk handle an M4 like a veteran of urban warfare. He made a note in his log. Name Harlow Thorne. Status anomaly. By the time the afternoon sun burned across the compound, the mood had shifted. Everyone had noticed her, the quiet girl with steady hands and a spine made of glass and steel. In the barracks, she unpacked slowly, each item placed with surgical precision. One knife, one medkit, one small pouch of gear that didn't belong to any NATO-issued inventory. Her roommate, Private Jessica Warner from the Australian Defence Force, watched with fascination. "You're, really organized," she said, trying to sound casual. Harlow smiled faintly. "Habit." "What's your specialty?" "Logistics, right? That's pretty broad. You supply transport or—" "General logistics support," Harlow replied, tone flat final. But Warner wasn't one to stop talking. "Nobody gets into elite NATO training for general anything. Where were you before this?" Harlow's pause was brief, calculated. "Fort Bragg, admin support." Warner frowned. "You don't move like admin." Harlow folded her uniform. "What do I move like?" Warner didn't answer, because the truth was, Harlow moved like someone who'd survived too much to explain. Dinner came with its own spectacle. The mess hall filled with chatter, laughter, boasting, rival units flexing pride and accent in equal measure. Harlow found a corner seat, her tray balanced, her back against the wall. She didn't eat like the others. No noise, no waste. Every bite measured, efficient. Across the room, Braxton saw her alone. He smirked. "Hey boys, logistics looks lonely, let's fix that." Their boots echoed as they crossed the hall, a wolf pack with a target. The crowd quieted, watching the hunt. Braxton loomed over her. "Evening logistics, mind if we sit?" It wasn't a question. Blackwood dropped into the seat across from her. Hawthorne to her left, Morrison to her right. Harlow didn't move. "So tell us, supply girl," Braxton said, voice loud enough to entertain his audience. "What makes someone like you think you belong here?" "I'm here to learn, sir, same as everyone else." That calm tone again, the kind that deflected cruelty instead of confronting it. It unsettled him. He wanted fear or defiance, something he could crush. Instead, she gave him composure. They pushed harder. "How's the view from the rear, sweetheart? You cry when the loud noises start. Maybe you can make us coffee after training." Each insult bounced off her stillness like bullets off armor. Finally, Braxton leaned in, his voice low but venomous. "You know what's funny? Some people are built to fight, some are built to fetch." He reached forward, knocking over her water. The glass spilled across her tray, soaking her food. The laughter came instantly. Harlow just watched the spreading puddle for a moment. Then she picked up a napkin, wiped the mess, and said softly, "Accidents happen." Her voice didn't tremble. Her hands didn't shake. She cleaned the table, stood, and walked away. The silence that followed was louder than any insult. Paisley watched her go and for the first time in years felt that old instinct awaken. The one that said, "That woman's been through something real." Later that night in her bunk, Harlow lay still, eyes closed, breathing even. But she wasn't asleep. The sounds of the compound played like a symphony she already knew. The hum of generators, the distant radio chatter, footsteps of the night patrol. Every sound mapped and measured. Under her pillow, a folded photograph. A younger version of herself, standing beside a man whose face was blurred, his uniform unmarked, his arm around her shoulders. She remembered his voice. "Never stand out, never stand down, and when they laugh at you." He'd paused, smiling faintly. "Let them, ghosts don't argue." Her hand brushed the edge of the photo before sliding it back into hiding. Tomorrow would test everything, her cover, her patience, and her purpose, because she wasn't here to train, she was here to hunt. And the people she was hunting didn't even know she'd arrived. If you'd ever been underestimated, if someone ever looked at you and saw weakness when all you held was restraint, you already understand her silence. Sometimes quiet isn't surrender. It's aim. Why did the air always feel heavier right before dawn? 500 hours. The compound came alive, with chaos disguised as order. The intercom crackled, "Rise and shine, elite warriors. 30 minutes to formation. Anyone late will regret existing." Boots hit the floor. Metal lockers slammed. The kind of morning noise that could wake the dead, but not the ghosts who'd already learned to live half awake. Harlow was already dressed. 5 minutes, that's all she needed. Every motion was clockwork, boots laced, hair tied, gear packed. There was something soothing about repetition, the rhythm of survival. Routine made her invisible. Routine kept her alive. Jessica Warner blinked awake, still tangled in her blanket. "You're like a machine," she groaned, rubbing her eyes. "How are you already ready?" Harlow smiled faintly. "Early habit." Warner fumbled with her shirt buttons. "You military types and your superpowers." "Not super," Harlow said softly. "Just used to mornings." Used to mornings that began with gunfire. Used to breakfasts eaten under sirens. Used to watching people die before sunrise. But none of that showed on her face. In the mess hall, 200 soldiers moved like a river, trays clattering, voices low, caffeine levels rising. Harlow ate alone again, eyes calm, scanning. The habit was automatic. Every room was a map. Every person a variable. Braxton spotted her from across the hall, laughter already forming before he reached her table. "Morning sunshine," he said. "Ready for your big test, or should we order you a participation ribbon?" She looked up, her tone even. "Good morning, Captain. I'm looking forward to the training." The politeness disarmed him. It always did. There was no friction to spark off, no reaction to feel powerful over, just that stillness. It was unnerving, like shouting at a mountain. "Well," he said finally, forcing a smirk, "let's see if logistics can do push-ups." He walked away, unsatisfied. She watched him go, not out of resentment but calculation. Men like Braxton were easy to predict, all ego, no strategy. The ones she worried about were quiet, observant, like Lieutenant Aldridge. When the sun broke the horizon, the trainees assembled on the field, a mosaic of nationalities, insignia, and pride. Flags stitched into shoulders like history itself. This was where reputations were made and destroyed. Master Sergeant Rodriguez stood on the raised platform, voice amplified by experience more than technology. "Welcome to NATO Elite Cross Training. Today we test the foundation. Strength, endurance, and discipline. You know the rules. Some of you will pass. Some will fail. A few will learn humility the hard way." His gaze swept the formation, pausing, almost unconsciously, on her. "Push-ups begin." The field dropped as one, arms bent, bodies straight. Dust and breath filled the air. Harlow lowered herself in rhythm, smooth, controlled, flawless. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Rodriguez moved through the rows, counting silently. Some faltered, some cheated, some strained. When he reached her, she'd already passed 100. Her breathing was measured, controlled. At 120 she stopped, hands flat in the dirt, waiting for command. He crouched beside her. "You could have kept going." "Yes, Sergeant." "Why didn't you?" "I was told 80 was the standard." He looked at her and saw not arrogance but discipline, a soldier who knew exactly when to stop showing off. Sit-ups, pull-ups. The same pattern repeated, perfection disguised as effort, precision hidden in humility. By the time the run started, 3 miles of uneven terrain around the perimeter road. The sun had risen fully, burning against the humid Virginia sky. The pack surged forward like wolves released from a cage. Harlow started in the middle, unhurried, her pace steady. The shouting, the breathing, the thud of boots all faded into rhythm. She'd learned long ago that the battlefield had a heartbeat, and if you listened carefully, you could move with it. At the halfway mark, others began to fade. Muscles burned, form crumbled, but Harlow's breathing stayed even. 18 minutes, 42 seconds. She crossed the line without breaking stride. Not first, not last. Exactly where she wanted to be, competent, forgettable. Rodriguez marked her time, pen scratching slowly against his clipboard. To the others, she was just another trainee. To him, she was a question with no answer. Nearby, Lieutenant Aldridge Paisley bent double, catching her breath. When she straightened, her gaze found Harlow again. "Nice run," she said. "Thank you, ma'am. You don't seem winded." "I try to stay in shape." Another perfect answer that said everything and nothing. Paisley studied her for a moment longer. There was something about the way she looked at people, not the way ordinary soldiers did, but like she was scanning for vulnerabilities, as if she'd learned to survive by predicting danger before it arrived. Then came the weapons familiarization. Rows of rifles lined the armory tables, each polished to perfection. Rodriguez briefed the group. "You will each demonstrate safe handling, basic assembly, and maintenance. Nothing fancy, just fundamentals." When Harlow stepped forward, Braxton nudged his team. "Watch this, she'll probably drop the mag." She reached for the M4 with both hands, careful, slow, deliberate. To the untrained eye, she looked nervous. To Rodriguez, she looked cautious. He stepped closer, first time with an M4 specialist. "Yes, Sergeant." Her voice trembled slightly, enough to seem genuine. "No problem, start with safety check." She nodded, followed his instructions, and performed the motions. But then something changed, small, almost imperceptible. The hesitation melted. Her hand stopped obeying his directions and started following memory. Grip shifted. Barrel angled. Bolt released. Magazine check. Everything she did was too smooth to be improvised, too efficient to be new. Rodriguez didn't interrupt, he just watched. It wasn't that she was fast. It was that she was fluent. When she performed a brass check, her fingers brushed the chamber without looking. When she reassembled the weapon, she did it by feel, not sight. The kind of confidence that came from repetition measured in years, not training hours. He leaned closer. Where'd you say you trained? Fort Jackson, Sergeant. And you're MOS. 76 Yankee, supply specialist. He smiled faintly. You sure about that? Yes, Sergeant. She didn't flinch, not once. Rodriguez made another note in silence. Next came the Beretta M9. Her movements repeated the same pattern, awkwardness melting into perfection. She field stripped and reassembled it in under 20 seconds, then set it on the table with both hands resting flat. Manual says that's proper form, Sergeant, she said softly. He nodded. Yeah, manual says a lot of things. Behind them, Braxton muttered something to Blackwood, but for once, it didn't sound like mockery. The performance had shifted the energy in the room. For the first time, people were watching Harlow not as entertainment, but as a mystery. By the end of the session, Rodriguez had filled 3 pages of notes. Every line said the same thing in different ways. She knows more than she should. Up in the observation deck, Colonel Ashford watched everything. Every twitch, every choice, every quiet deflection. He'd spent his life finding inconsistencies. Soldiers who lied, recruits who broke, commanders who hid their mistakes behind paperwork. But this woman, she was a puzzle that refused to fit. He checked her records again that morning. Classified above his clearance level, redacted lines in redacted sections. Even her medical history looked suspicious. Wounds consistent with IED exposure, not desk work. He'd seen cover identities before. This one was professional, maybe too professional. When the day ended, the recruits filed into the debriefing room. Sweat, tension, the lingering burn of pride and exhaustion. Colonel Ashford stood at the front, his presence commanding silence. Today was assessment, he began. Tomorrow we separate potential from pretense, tactical movement drills, real-world simulation. You will be evaluated not just on skill but judgment. His eyes swept across the rows, pausing on her again. Her face was calm, too calm. While he spoke, her gaze moved like a scanner, memorizing layout, exits, personnel distribution, security cameras, radio placement. She wasn't listening to his words. She was gathering intel. Paisley noticed, so did Rodriguez. They didn't say anything, not yet. When the briefing ended, Ashford gestured subtly toward Rodriguez. They met later in the colonel's office, door locked, blinds drawn. "What's your assessment?" Ashford asked. Rodriguez flipped his notebook open. "She's not who her file says she is." "Explain." "Physical condition matches combat operators. Her tactical awareness is off the charts. Weapon familiarity, advanced. Way beyond supply training." Ashford nodded. "Medical file." "Redacted. Injuries consistent with combat exposure. Classified treatment history." "Recommendation." "Keep watching," Rodriguez said quietly. "Tomorrow will tell us what she really knows." Ashford leaned back, eyes thoughtful. "And if she's here for something else?" Rodriguez's mouth tightened. "Then I hope she's on our side." Back in the barracks, Harlow sat on the edge of her bunk. The room was dim, only the hum of the corridor lights bleeding under the door. Jessica Warner was already asleep, one arm dangling off the bed, headphones still in. Harlow listened to her breathing, steady, untroubled. Then she moved, quiet as wind. Checked the locks. Repositioned her gear. tilted her mirror at an angle that reflected the door. Little habits, old habits, the kind that kept her alive in places that didn't have walls. She lay back finally, eyes open. She thought of the man in the photograph again, the one with the blurred face and the quiet smile. His last words to her had never left her mind. The dead don't need to be remembered. They just need to finish what they started. She had one mission. It had brought her here, under a false name, under false rank. Someone inside this program was selling secrets. Someone responsible for the deaths of people she'd served beside. Tomorrow, the game would start for real. For now, she closed her eyes. Sleep came slow, heavy, not peace, just pause. And as the compound drifted into silence, Colonel Ashford made one last encrypted call. "Falcon Command, this is Ashford," he said into the receiver, confirming presence of anomalous trainee. Request background clearance extension, level 5 priority. A pause, static, then a voice calm, bureaucratic, final. Denied, maintain observation, do not interfere. Ashford lowered the phone slowly. Somewhere deep inside, he already knew whatever this woman was doing here, it was sanctioned from higher up, much higher. Outside, floodlights bathed the compound in cold white. In one of the dorm windows, a single silhouette sat perfectly still, eyes open, staring into the dark. Not waiting. Listening. Because ghosts never sleep. They just wait for the next war to begin. If you've ever had to prove yourself in a room built to doubt you, you know that silence can be sharper than steel. And Harlow Thorne. She was about to prove that sometimes the quietest soldier is the one the enemy should fear most. What happens when a lie becomes the only truth that keeps you alive? Day 2 began under a gray sky, the kind that hinted at rain but never quite delivered. The air was heavy, thick with humidity and expectation. The compound buzzed with motion. Soldiers adjusted their gear, instructors barked orders, and somewhere between the noise and the order, Harlow Thorne moved like she'd always been there, unseen, unshaken, unreadable. Today was tactical movement day, the first real test. Not of strength, of instinct. Master Sergeant Rodriguez stood on the raised platform, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning faces. "Today," he announced, "you'll operate in mixed units. Movement, communication, coordination. You'll clear obstacles, identify threats, and reach your target zone. Efficiency and teamwork are everything." He paused deliberately, letting his gaze settle on her. "Some of you are here to learn, some are here to prove, and some," his eyes narrowed, "are here to hide." The silence that followed was heavy. A few heads turned. Harlow didn't move. Her team assignment came through the loudspeaker. Unit 14, Captain Braxton, Private Morrison, Specialist Harlow Thorne, and Sergeant Klaus Weber. Braxton's grin spread instantly. "Perfect," he said. "We've got our logistics mascot." Weber, the German KSK operator, said nothing. His face was unreadable, pale, precise, built for discipline. His English came with that clipped formality only elite European units carried. "Objective?" he asked. "Move through the obstacle course," Braxton replied. "Simulate urban warfare. Secure the final point. Easy enough unless someone slows us down." His eyes flicked toward Harlow. She simply adjusted her gloves. "Understood, sir." The field stretched ahead, concrete walls, razor wire simulated buildings, sensor grids that tracked movement and exposure. To the uninitiated, it looked like a nightmare of mud and metal. To Harlow, it looked familiar. Too familiar. "Clock starts in 5-4. Rodriguez's voice echoed through the speakers. 3, 2, 1, move." Braxton charged forward, weapon raised, motion loud and direct, all muscle, no subtlety. Morrison followed clumsily, tripping over his own pace. Weber moved low, sharp, efficient, a machine. Harlow at the rear moved differently, slow, controlled, every step calculated. The first obstacle was a concrete barrier laced with sensor wires. Braxton vaulted over it without checking for trip alarms. The sensors blared red. "Watch and learn," he shouted, landing hard. "Penalty," Rodriguez's voice crackled. Weber frowned. "Captain, you triggered." "Relax," Braxton cut him off. "It's simulated, doesn't count for real combat." But it did. Every alarm revealed exposure. Every misstep cost time. Harlow followed, crouched low, scanning the barrier. She found the narrow gap between wire clusters, rolled through silently, and emerged without a single sensor flash. Weber saw it. "That was efficient," he said, watching her reset her stance. She didn't answer, just gave a quiet nod. The next section was an alleyway simulation. High walls, shadowed corners, multiple angles of potential fire. Braxton moved fast again, ignoring cover. Morrison followed, nearly catching a simulated round to the head from a mechanical target. Harlow's voice came low but firm. "Left window, 2 o'clock." Braxton froze, looked. The mechanical target's motion sensor turned toward him a second later. If this had been live combat, he'd be dead. He glanced back at her. "Lucky guess." "Observation," she said simply. They advanced. The air smelled of burnt powder and oil from previous drills. The sounds, gunfire simulations, radio static, shouted commands, all blurred into that strange chaos Harlow knew too well. Halfway through the course, the terrain shifted. Urban simulation became rural, open ground, sparse cover, tactical nightmare. Braxton barked, "Double time it, move." They ran. A flash of light simulated explosion. Morrison dove the wrong way. Weber yelled something in German. Harlow dropped flat, rolled behind a berm, and called out, "Crossfire triangle, stay low." Braxton hesitated, confused. Crossfire what? But before he could finish, Weber followed her lead instinctively, repositioning. The sensors blinked green, tactical success. Rodriguez watched from the control tower, eyes narrowing. She just executed an advanced maneuver not taught in NATO cross-training, a maneuver reserved for special operations counter-ambush teams. Where the hell did she learn that? He murmured to himself. Down on the field, the scenario ended. The buzzer echoed across the range. Unit 14 complete. Efficiency 91%. That score was near perfect, better than most of the actual combat teams. Braxton stood there, panting, covered in sweat. "We must have got lucky," he muttered. Weber looked at Harlow and shook his head. "Luck is noisy. You were silent." She met his eyes for just a moment. Habit. By the time they returned to the staging area, whispers had already started. The quiet logistics clerk wasn't so quiet anymore. Rodriguez made pages of notes that all said the same thing. Not normal, not random, not an accident. At the mess hall, even the noise had changed. People didn't mock her now, they watched her. The same men who'd laughed 2 days ago kept their distance, pretending not to stare. Only Paisley Aldridge approached. "Impressive work today," she said. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "That's the thing," Paisley replied softly. "I don't think anyone knows what your job actually is." Harlow looked up, calm, guarded. "I read the manual." Paisley smiled faintly. "Sure you did." She lowered her voice. "I know those tactics. I've seen them before in places NATO doesn't talk about." Harlow didn't blink. "Then you also know not to ask questions about them." Paisley's expression hardened, but she nodded. Understood. That night the barracks felt quieter than usual. Even Warner, normally a burst of energy, had gone silent, scrolling through her phone. The story of the logistics girl who outperformed commandos had spread fast. Harlow sat on her bunk, methodically cleaning her rifle. Every motion was slow, deliberate, ritualistic. The kind of routine that steadied her hands when her mind wanted to wander back to places she'd buried. A photo fell out of her gear pouch, the same one. The blurred man beside her, arm over her shoulder, both wearing black tactical gear with no insignia. Her hand hovered over it. For a moment her composure cracked, a flicker of something, grief maybe, or guilt. Then she tucked it away and closed the pouch. Because ghosts didn't grieve, not where others could see. The next day came faster than it should have. Morning briefings, new drills. The schedule didn't leave room for thought, only movement. Rodriguez gathered the teams on the firing range. "Today we go live fire," he said. "Real weapons, real pressure, real consequences, don't screw it up." The air reeked of metal and gun oil. Targets lined the horizon, some stationary, others moving, programmed to simulate hostile engagement. Harlow stepped to her lane, rifle slung, stance deliberately uncertain. She played the part well, slightly off balance, squinting through her scope, pretending to overthink. When the whistle blew, the others opened fire immediately. She waited. The first targets dropped, the air filled with the rhythmic percussion of trained soldiers doing what they did best. Then she moved. Slow, controlled, breathing synced to the sound of the gun. Every pull of the trigger was measured, a metronome of precision. At first her shots seemed inconsistent, one low, one high, one wide, but Rodriguez saw it again, a pattern too deliberate to be chance. She wasn't missing, she was calibrating. When she found her range, the rhythm changed. Pop, pop, pop. Each target fell in rapid succession. She reloaded without looking down. Adjusted for wind. Compensated for distance. Her performance chart climbed from average to exceptional in under 2 minutes. Then during a reload, she murmured, barely audible, 2 meters high. Atmospheric pressure shift from yesterday's range. Rodriguez froze. That wasn't something a logistics clerk should even know. He made another note, advanced ballistic awareness, sniper-level calculations. By the end of the exercise, Harlow ranked in the upper third of all shooters, and every score below hers belonged to men who'd been fighting their entire careers. When the whistle ended the round, Braxton shot her a look. "You're full of surprises, logistics." "Just following instructions," she replied. He gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. For the first time, he wasn't mocking her. He was trying to figure her out. That night, Rodriguez didn't bother with notes. He called Colonel Ashford directly. "She's not here by accident," he said. "I know," Ashford replied. "Pentagon denied my clearance request. They said to observe and not interfere." Rodriguez frowned. "That's not standard." "No," Ashford said quietly, "it's not." He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "We're sitting on a classified operation, Sergeant, and she's at the center of it." Rodriguez hesitated. "Then what's our role?" Ashford looked toward the dark window, the training fields beyond swallowed in fog. "To stay out of her way, until whatever she's here to do is done." Back in the barracks, Harlow sat awake again, staring at her reflection in the dim mirror above her bunk. The silence pressed in familiar, almost comforting. She'd survived worse. But this place, these people, they reminded her of something she didn't want to remember: trust. And trust got people killed. Still, she couldn't shake one thought. Someone in this camp was dirty. Someone was leaking NATO intel. Someone was selling lives for money. She wasn't here to train. She was here to find them. The Reaper Queen never hunted for sport. She hunted for balance. And tomorrow, her real mission would begin. If you've ever been surrounded by people waiting for you to fail, you know how quiet power feels. It's not in what you say. It's in what you don't. And Harlow Thorne was the kind of silence the world should fear. What happens when training turns into war, and no one notices until it's too late? The storm rolled in just after midnight. Thunder, low and distant, wrapped the NATO compound in a kind of restless tension. The air smelled of rain and metal. Somewhere beyond the perimeter, a generator hummed, steady but strained. Harlow lay awake again, eyes tracing the shadows crawling across the ceiling. The storm didn't bother her. What did were the silences between the thunder, the kind that carried wrongness. She learned long ago that true danger didn't announce itself. It whispered. Then it happened. A sound so small most would have missed it. A soft pop, not thunder, not the wind, suppressed gunfire. She sat up instantly. 2 seconds later, the compound lights flickered, once, twice, then blacked out completely. A heartbeat of silence, then shouting. Power down. Check generators. Secure the perimeter. Warner jolted awake, panicked. What's happening? Harlow's voice cut through the dark, calm and surgical. Stay down, don't move. She slipped from the bunk, bare feet soundless on the cold floor. Her hand found the edge of her gear, pre-packed, ready, always ready. The power flickered again, emergency lights flashing red across the barracks. Shadows jumped like ghosts across the walls. Boots thundered down the corridor. Someone shouted, all personnel to standby stations. But Harlow wasn't listening to them. She was listening through them, parsing the chaos for patterns, orders that didn't fit, voices she didn't recognize. Her instincts screamed before her mind caught up. This wasn't a drill. She moved fast, grabbing her weapon, vest, and radio. Warner's voice followed, trembling. Are we under attack? Yes, Harlow said simply. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone without code verification. What code? Hotel 7 Alpha, Harlow interrupted. If they don't say it, shoot. Warner froze. You're not supposed to have access to that. But Harlow was already gone. Outside, the compound was chaos. Flashlights cut through rain and smoke. The smell of ozone hung in the air, and something else. Cordite, gunpowder. Braxton's voice boomed from across the yard. This is a power systems test. Stay in your... A bullet snapped past his head, embedding in the wall. He ducked instinctively, eyes wide. What the hell? More gunfire erupted, real, heavy, close. The kind of sound you never forget once you've heard it. Contact, someone screamed. Sirens wailed, but they were too slow. Harlow sprinted across the open ground, body low, movements deliberate. Every step calculated for silence and speed. She reached the armory, locked, of course. A keypad glowed faintly in red. She entered a code no one at her clearance level should have known. The lock clicked. Inside, rows of weapons gleamed under dim emergency light. She bypassed the standard rifles and went straight for a case in the back, one labeled Restricted Access, Tier 1. Her fingers flew over the latch. The case opened to reveal a modified Mk-13 sniper rifle, long range, silenced, black as night. She exhaled once. That sound, that weight was home. Outside, the shouting grew louder. Muzzle flashes flickered against the rain. Through the narrow window she spotted them, shadows moving with precision, not panic. Their formation was military. Their uniforms dark, unmarked. Not recruits, not NATO. Mercenaries. And they'd breached the compound with surgical precision. Harlow raised the rifle. The scope's glass caught the faint red of the emergency lights. One target near the gate, placing an explosive. Two more covering angles. Another adjusting a drone uplink. She exhaled slowly, heartbeat steady. The world narrowed to the scope. 1, 2, 3. 3 suppressed shots. 3 bodies dropped silently into the mud. From across the yard, Braxton and his squad froze. Who the hell's shooting? He barked. Weber scanned the darkness. Cover fire, NATO. No, Braxton said, eyes narrowing. That wasn't cover, that was precision. The sound came again, soft, controlled, rhythmic. Whoever it was, they were eliminating hostiles faster than anyone could respond. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comms. All personnel arm up. Unknown hostile infiltration. Gate breach confirmed. Defensive positions now. Harlow moved through the shadows, rifle low. Every movement was instinct. Every corridor turn pre-mapped in her mind. She reached the operations hub just as the emergency lights went out completely. Backup power disabled. Someone inside had cut the feed. That was confirmation enough. This wasn't random. This was inside help. Through the glass, she saw Lieutenant Aldridge Paisley, crouched behind a console, weapon drawn. Harlow pushed the door open. "Ma'am." Paisley whirled, aim snapping toward her. "Jesus, Thorne, what are you doing here?" "Trying to keep you alive." "Who's attacking us?" "Mercs, not local. They're here for something in the server mainframe." Paisley's eyes widened. "How do you?" Harlow stepped past her, typing commands into the dark terminal. The screen flickered, demanding clearance authorization. "Access DNID." She typed again. "Access DNID." "Come on," she muttered, then whispered something under her breath, a string of code that wasn't part of any known NATO sequence. The screen blinked, then turned green. "Access granted." Paisley froze. "What? How did you just?" "Later." Harlow pulled up the live security feeds. Half were blacked out, but a few still functioned, grainy, flickering footage. South Gate, explosion crater. North Barracks, hostiles advancing. Control tower compromised. But one image made her still completely. A face. Grainy, distant, but unmistakable. The man in her photo. The one she'd buried years ago. Alive. She leaned closer. The footage pixelated, flickered, gone. Paisley looked at her. "You know him." Harlow didn't answer. She'd spent years believing he'd died on a mission gone bad. An op buried so deep even the agency pretended it never happened. Now he was here. Leading the attack. Paisley grabbed her arm. "Thorne, talk to me. Who are you?" Harlow's jaw clenched. "Not now." The wall exploded. Both women were thrown across the room. Smoke, shrapnel, the floor buckled under the blast. Harlow's ears rang, vision blurred. Through the haze she saw two mercenaries storm in black gear, visors down, weapons raised. Before they could react, she rolled, grabbing her sidearm. 2 shots. 2 kills. Fast, efficient, beautifully brutal. Paisley stared, stunned. What the hell was that? "Survival," Harlow said. They moved, fast, out of the smoke into the corridor. The alarms had gone silent now, power completely dead. Emergency beacons flashed sporadically, casting everything in blood-red light. Outside, Braxton's team had taken cover behind an overturned jeep. "We're surrounded," Morrison yelled. Weber fired controlled bursts toward the fence line. "They're cutting through the perimeter." Then from the shadows Harlow emerged, calm, rifle slung across her chest, uniform torn, eyes sharp. Braxton turned. "Where the hell have you been?" "Killing your problem," she said. Before he could reply, she took position beside him, sighted through her scope, and took out a target before he even spotted it. Weber blinked. "Your file says logistics." "Don't believe everything you read." Another burst of gunfire rained down. Braxton ducked. "Who are these people?" "Contractors," Harlow said. "Private, trained for extraction ops. Somebody inside fed them intel." "Inside?" "Yes, which means whoever you're trusting, don't." Rodriguez's voice came through static on the radio. "All units fall back to the armory. Regroup." "Negative," Harlow said instantly, grabbing the radio. "Armory's compromised. They want us there. It's a trap." Rodriguez's voice hesitated. "Thorne, how the hell do you?" "Just trust me." A pause, then quietly, "Copy that." Braxton's eyes narrowed. "Since when do you give orders, logistics?" "Since the people giving them don't understand they're already dead," she said. The rain fell harder now, mixing with the dirt and the blood. The compound had become a war zone. Smoke rose from the wrecked vehicles. Shattered glass littered the ground. And in the distance, through the chaos, she saw him again. The man from the photo. Moving with purpose, not leading, commanding. Her throat went dry. Braxton followed her gaze. Who's that? No one, she said too quickly. He noticed the lie. You know him. Harlow reloaded. Focus on staying alive, Captain. But it was too late. The past she'd buried had walked straight into her present. She wasn't supposed to see him again. Because she'd killed him. Or at least she thought she had. Thunder rolled overhead, drowning the sound of her heartbeat. She steadied her rifle, eyes locked on his silhouette through the scope. Rain blurred the lens, but she didn't blink. Paisley's voice whispered through her earpiece. Who is he? Harlow's voice came at a whisper. Ghost protocol operative. Call sign Shepherd. And you? She hesitated. The old name burned on her tongue. Reaper. Paisley's breath caught. Reaper Queen. Not anymore, Harlow said. That part of me died with him. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the battlefield for one perfect, horrifying second. He looked right at her, through the scope, through the storm. And smiled. The man she'd once loved, the man she'd buried, had come back from the dead. And this time, he wasn't here to save her. If you've ever had to face the ghost of someone you failed to bury, you know what she felt in that moment. Fear not of death, but of recognition. Because some wars don't end. They just change names. How do you aim a weapon at someone who once taught you how to breathe? The storm hadn't let up. It had become part of the night, a constant percussion of rain, thunder, and distant gunfire. The compound was half ruined, smoke curling from broken vehicles and shattered walls. Harlow crouched behind the remnants of a barrier, scope pressed against her cheek. Her pulse stayed steady, but something deeper, older, shook beneath the calm. Through the lens, she saw him again. Shepherd. The man who'd once commanded her, trained her, saved her life, and then betrayed everything they'd fought for. He moved through the smoke with precision. His men followed close, each one scanning angles, guarding him like a ghost they feared to lose again. He wore no insignia, just black gear, rain-soaked, his face half covered by a tactical scarf. But she didn't need to see his full face. She already knew the rhythm of his movements, the way he held his weapon, the tilt of his head when assessing threat vectors. She knew him the way scars know the skin they never left. Paisley's voice broke through the static. Thorn, no, Harlow. Whatever your name is, we're pinned at the comms hub, East Corridor. Harlow exhaled, eyes still locked on her target. Hold position, I'll cover you. She adjusted the scope. Range 180 meters, wind variable, distance and angle perfect. She could take the shot. She should take the shot. But her finger refused to move. Because if she fired, if she ended him, then she'd have to admit he was real. That all the guilt, all the grief, all the nights she spent trying to forget weren't ghosts. They were memory. And memory doesn't die easy. A sudden flash of light, grenade detonation near the North Tower, snapped her back to focus. No more hesitation. She shifted targets. 3 mercs moving toward the East Corridor, controlled breathing. 1 shot, 2, 3, all clean. Path clear, she said into the radio. Paisley's voice came back, shaken but alive. Copy, you just saved our asses. Keep moving, regroup by the command bunker. She slung the rifle, rose from cover and ran. Mud splashed under her boots, the air thick with smoke and rain. Every step took her closer to him, to the ghost wearing her past. By the time she reached the command bunker, Braxton and Weber were there, bloodied but standing. Rodriguez was coordinating defenses, his face lit by the flickering light of a single emergency lantern. "Thorne," he shouted, "you're not supposed to be out here." "Neither are you," she replied. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "We've got wounded in Sector 4. Reinforcements ETA." "Stop," she interrupted. "You're not getting reinforcements. They jammed the satellite link and corrupted the response chain. This isn't an external raid, it's an extraction." Rodriguez frowned. "Extraction of what?" "Not what," she said. "Who?" Before he could reply, the door burst open. Two soldiers dragged in a captive, one of the mercs, bleeding but alive. Rodriguez grabbed him by the collar. "Who sent you?" The man laughed weakly. His accent was Eastern European, his tone resigned. "Doesn't matter, you're already dead." Harlow stepped forward. "Answer the question." He looked up at her. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "You," he whispered, "the Reaper." The room froze. Rodriguez looked between them. "What did he just call you?" Harlow's expression didn't change. "A ghost story." But the mercenary grinned. "You shouldn't be alive." "I get that a lot," she said quietly, then struck him once precise at the temple. He slumped unconscious. Rodriguez grabbed her arm. "You want to explain that?" "No time," she said, pulling away. "Make time," he demanded. She turned, eyes cold. "Your enemy isn't who you think it is, Sergeant. The man leading this attack, he's ex-agency. Code name Shepard. And he's not here for territory. He's here for data, the Ghost Protocol archive." Rodriguez blinked. "That's classified above NATO command." "I know," she said, "because I helped build it." The silence that followed was deafening. The Ghost Protocol wasn't rumor. It was the kind of program that existed only in whispered briefings, an off-book initiative created for deniable missions, operatives with erased identities, zero oversight, total autonomy. Reaper and Shepard had been its first field assets. Until Shepard went rogue. He'd sold names, coordinates, missions. Dozens died because of it. And Harlow, Reaper, had been ordered to terminate him. She did, or thought she did. But ghosts don't always stay buried. "We have to destroy the servers," she said. "If he gets that data, every covert operative from here to Europe is dead." Rodriguez hesitated. "If what you're saying is true." "It is." He studied her face, saw something in her eyes that wasn't fear or bravado, just truth. Cold, absolute truth. Finally he nodded. "Then let's finish this." They moved fast down the service tunnels beneath the compound. Rainwater dripped from overhead pipes. Emergency lights flickered in rhythm with the storm. "Server vaults ahead," Weber said, leading the way. The closer they got, the quieter Harlow became. She could feel him now, Shepard, not in sound, not in sight, but in the pulse of instinct. Two ghosts orbiting the same wound. When they reached the vault, the door was already ajar. "Damn it," Rodriguez muttered. "They're inside." Harlow raised her hand. "Stop." She peered through the gap. Two mercs by the door. Another kneeling by the console, downloading encrypted data to a portable drive. She stepped out silently, two suppressed shots, perfect headshots. Both guards dropped. The third spun, weapon raised, too slow. She fired once. He fell backward, clutching the drive. Harlow caught it before it hit the ground. The screen flashed. Download 94%. She pulled the plug. The screen froze. Rodriguez exhaled. "Nice work." But her eyes weren't on the drive. They were on the reflection in the glass panel beside the console. He was standing behind her. She turned slowly. Shepard. Older now. Lines etched deep around eyes that once smiled easily. His beard streaked with gray. But the presence, that impossible calm, was the same. "Hello, Reaper," he said. His voice was like static over memory. "Been a while." Rodriguez raised his rifle. "Hands where I can see them." Shepard smiled faintly. "You should listen to her, Sergeant. She knows how this ends." "Stand down," Harlow said quietly. He tilted his head, still giving orders, I see. This doesn't have to happen, she said. He chuckled, it already did. Lightning flashed through the corridor glass, illuminating them both, predator and prey, though no one could tell which was which. You should have stayed dead, she said. You should have joined me. That wasn't the mission. It was, he said, stepping closer. You just didn't know it yet. Rodriguez's finger tightened on the trigger. Back up now. Shepard glanced at him. You won't shoot, you're still playing by rules. Then he looked back at Harlow. But you were born to break them. Her chest tightened. What do you want, Shepard? The truth, he said. The same thing you've been chasing since they buried us. You think NATO's clean. You think the agency told you everything. The Ghost Protocol didn't go rogue, it was used. We were tools. When we stopped being useful, they erased us. She shook her head. You sold them out, you killed our team. I survived, he corrected. Same as you. Difference is I stopped lying to myself about why. He raised a small detonator. They'll burn us again, Reaper, unless we burn them first. Rodriguez aimed higher. Drop it. But Harlow stepped between them. Don't, she said. Move, Rodriguez barked. Shepard, she said softly, if you do this, you'll kill thousands of innocent operatives, people who had nothing to do with what they did to us. They're not innocent, he said. They're replacements. And you think revenge makes it right. He smiled tiredly. It doesn't make it right, it makes it finished. Rain pounded the roof above like a drumbeat counting down. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Just two soldiers, two ghosts, facing the weight of everything they'd become. Then Harlow lowered her weapon. Shepard blinked. What are you doing? I'm not killing you, she said. Not again. His expression softened. You still think you have a choice. He pressed the detonator. Click. Nothing. She held up a small black device, his detonator's signal interceptor. You taught me too well, she said quietly. For the first time he smiled genuinely. Good girl. Then he lunged. The fight was fast, violent, silent. Two professionals, no wasted motion. He struck high, she countered low. His elbow clipped her jaw, her knee drove into his ribs. They moved like mirrors of one another, not enemies, not strangers, just reflections colliding. Rodriguez tried to intervene, couldn't. It was too fast, too personal. Finally, Harlow pinned him, her knife at his throat. Rainwater and blood mixed beneath them. Shepard looked up at her, eyes calm. Do it. You already did once. Her hand trembled. She pressed harder, then stopped. No, she whispered. I'm done being your weapon. He exhaled, almost a laugh. Then you'll watch it all burn. He grabbed her wrist, twisting, the knife clattered away. A struggle, a shot, deafening in the confined space. Silence. Shepard froze. Blood bloomed across his chest. Not hers, his. Rodriguez lowered his rifle, smoke still curling from the barrel. Shepard looked at her one last time. Guess you finally found your aim. Then he fell. For a moment, there was only the storm. Harlow knelt beside him. No tears, just breath. She whispered, you shouldn't have come back. Then she closed his eyes. Outside, the rain softened. Rodriguez looked at her. You just saved a lot of people. She shook her head. No, I just ended what was already over. He nodded slowly. Then who are you now? She looked down at her blood-stained hands. Someone who finally stopped running from ghosts. The drive in her hand flickered, corrupted, data gone. Mission complete. But the ache in her chest, that would take longer. If you've ever had to destroy the only person who once made you believe you mattered, you know that victory doesn't always feel like survival. Sometimes it just feels like silence. What do you do when survival becomes evidence? The storm had passed by dawn. What remained was silence, thick, heavy, unnatural. the kind that settles only after too much noise. Smoke still drifted from the shattered walls of the NATO compound. The medics moved quietly between the wounded, tagging, lifting, counting. They didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Harlow sat on the steps outside the command bunker, her face pale against the morning light. Her uniform was torn, streaked with mud and dried blood. The rifle lay across her knees like a confession she couldn't put down. She wasn't watching the cleanup. She was listening to the emptiness, to the way the world sounds after it's been broken. Rodriguez approached slowly, holding a metal thermos. "You should drink something." She didn't move. He crouched beside her. "You saved a lot of lives last night." Her voice came out low. "I also ended one." "You didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," she said softly. "That's the problem." Rodriguez looked away, jaw tightening. He'd seen that kind of guilt before, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't cry, doesn't fade. It just stays. A convoy of black SUVs pulled into the courtyard, unmarked, polished, too clean for a battlefield. "Agency," Rodriguez muttered. "They move fast." Harlow's eyes followed the vehicles as the doors opened. Men in suits stepped out, not soldiers, not field operatives. Bureau types, clean-shaven, emotionless, carrying authority like a loaded weapon. At their center was Colonel Ashford. His face was drawn, older somehow. He didn't look angry, just tired. "Specialist Thorne," he called out, his tone formal but careful. She stood slowly, rifle still in hand. "You're coming with us," he said. Rodriguez stepped forward. "She saved this entire base, sir. You can't just—" Ashford cut him off. "She's under internal review. That's not optional." Harlow looked at Rodriguez. No anger, no fear, just quiet resignation. "It's okay." He shook his head. "No, it's not." But she was already walking toward them. The agents surrounded her, not rough, not hostile, but precise. Procedure. Restraint. She handed over her weapon without protest. As they led her to the convoy, Paisley appeared from the medical tent, arm in a sling, face bruised but alive. "Harlow." She turned. Paisley took a step forward, ignoring the guards. "You don't deserve this." "Neither did they," Harlow said softly, glancing at the stretchers being loaded. "But life doesn't care about deserve." Then she was gone. The interrogation room was small, sterile, the kind of place built not for truth but for control. A single light hung overhead. The walls were bare, the table metallic and cold. Harlow sat with her hands folded neatly, posture perfect. Across from her sat a man in a dark gray suit, badge clipped to his belt. No nameplate, no insignia. He pressed record. "State your full name for the record." "Harlow Thorne," she said. "Also known as—" "Silence." "Reaper," he prompted. She met his gaze. "That name doesn't exist." He leaned back slightly. "You're aware of the charges." "No," she said calmly. "I stopped keeping track a long time ago." He smiled faintly. "You violated multiple levels of clearance, accessed restricted weapons, used unregistered codes, and took command of a NATO base during an unsanctioned conflict." She didn't flinch, "and saved 87 people from dying." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" He tapped his pen against the file. "Shepard, the Ghost Protocol, your involvement." She said nothing. He slid a photo across the table, the compound burning. "You expect us to believe this was all coincidence?" "No," she said. "I expect you to believe it was planned." He frowned. "By whom?" "Ask your own people." He studied her for a moment. "You're implying internal corruption." "I'm not implying," she said softly. "I'm confirming." He flipped another page. "You think Shepard acted alone?" "No, he never acted alone." The agent's tone shifted. "Then who?" She looked up, eyes cold. "Whoever's still protecting the files you won't let anyone see." For the first time, he hesitated. You don't have access to that information. She leaned forward. You really believe that? Silence. The agent looked down, adjusting his tie. You're not making this easy. I didn't come here to make it easy, she said. I came to finish what you started. He sighed. What exactly do you think you finished, Ms. Thorne? She tilted her head slightly. A loop. He frowned. A loop. You built an operation to erase people, she said. You made ghosts, but ghosts don't disappear, they wait, and now they're coming home. The agent closed the file. This interview is over. As he stood, she said quietly, Tell your director I want a deal. He paused. What kind of deal? I'll give you every encrypted key Shepard tried to steal, but I want something in return. He studied her. And what's that? The truth. He gave a small, cold smile. Truth is expensive. So is silence, she replied. He didn't answer, he just left. When the door closed, she exhaled finally. The walls were soundproof, but she knew there were ears behind them. There always were. She waited. 38 minutes later, the door opened again. Colonel Ashford stepped in. His uniform was immaculate, but his eyes weren't the same. Something behind them had cracked. He closed the door softly. You should have told me. You shouldn't have had to ask, she said. He sat across from her. I read your old file, the real one. Then you know I don't belong here. You belonged where you were, he said quietly, until they took that from you. She looked at him. How much do you know? Enough to understand why you disappeared, not enough to sleep well. She smiled faintly. That's how you know it's real. He sighed, rubbing his temples. They want to bury this, all of it. Shepard, the attack, the data theft, everything. They'll rewrite the report, say it was an exercise gone wrong. Of course they will, she said. It's easier than accountability. They're offering you a deal. Let me guess, she said. Pardon in exchange for silence. He nodded. She stared at the table for a long moment. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of what you represent, he said. Proof that their ghosts still breathe. Her voice softened. What would you do? He hesitated. If I were you. Yes. He met her gaze. I'd disappear again, before they make sure you stay gone this time. She almost laughed. You think I haven't tried? He stood, walking to the door. They're transferring you to a classified facility. Europe. You'll be debriefed there. She leaned back. And then? Then I don't know. Then you do, she said. You just don't want to say it. He didn't deny it. When the door closed behind him, she whispered, So it begins again. 2 days later, a plane lifted off from Andrews Air Force Base under heavy cloud cover. Inside, Harlow sat between two silent agents, shackled, calm, watching the rain streak across the window. Below, the world blurred, green, gray, gone. She thought of Shepard, of their first mission, of the moment he told her ghosts like them never really die. They just find new wars to haunt. He was right. At 30,000 feet, she closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her lids, memories unfolded like film. The training, the betrayal, the quiet nights spent hiding in foreign safe houses, the long silence between orders. And somewhere in that silence, a question she'd never asked. Who gave the order that erased us? She'd always blamed Shepard, but now she wasn't sure. When she opened her eyes again, she caught her reflection in the window, pale, tired, unreadable. The Reaper Queen. Not a title, not a legend, just a name people whispered when they needed a monster who wouldn't hesitate. But she was tired of being their ghost. Somewhere deep in the plane, a red light flickered, communications ping. The lead agent checked his tablet, frowned. What is it? The co-pilot asked. Change of destination, the agent said. Who authorized? Level black clearance. The co-pilot frowned. That's above Central Command. The agent didn't answer. He just looked at Harlow. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled small, knowing. Because she already understood what that meant. The mission wasn't over. It never had been. If you've ever tried to escape your past, only to realize it's been steering you all along, then you already know her truth. Sometimes survival isn't freedom. It's a continuation. What do you do when the people rescuing you are the same ones who buried you? The flight had been silent for hours. No radio chatter, no turbulence, no light except the dull red glow of the cabin indicators. Harlow sat shackled between the two escorts, black suits, dark visors, not a word spoken since takeoff. Outside, clouds drifted like gray ghosts below the wings. She could feel it now, that wrongness again, the same stillness before everything breaks. The lead agent checked his tablet for the 5th time. Each time, his frown deepened. Harlow noticed the way his thumb hovered near his sidearm, the way his partner's eyes darted toward her reflection in the window. Something was off. She turned her head slightly. "You're off course." Neither answered. "Europe's east," she said calmly. "We're heading south." "Stay quiet," one of them said, not harshly but nervously. She smiled faintly. That's what they always say before the plane goes missing. The younger agent shifted uneasily. "Orders are orders." "Whose?" she asked. No answer. Then she saw it through the window, a flicker of light in the clouds below. Not lightning, not reflection. Engines. 2 black drones rising fast, sleek, unmarked hunter class. Harlow's blood went cold. She leaned forward. "We've got tails." The pilot's voice came through the cabin intercom. "Command, we're being tracked. 2 unknown UAVs approaching from Vector 150. Static, then silence. The cabin lights flickered. The older agent looked up. "We've lost comms." Harlow's voice was calm but firm. "Unshackle me." "Negative." "They're not escorts," she said. "They're cleaners." Before he could respond, the first missile hit. The explosion tore through the right engine. The plane lurched sideways, alarms screaming. The cabin filled with smoke and chaos. Harlow was thrown against her restraints. Metal groaned, oxygen masks dropped. "Unshackle me," she yelled over the roar. The younger agent fumbled with the key, trembling. "We'll die if we—" "Then die free," she snapped. He hesitated, then did it. The cuffs fell away. Harlow grabbed the emergency latch, yanked it. A blast of freezing wind tore through the cabin. The agent shouted, "You'll never survive." She clipped a chute from the side compartment, locked eyes with him. "That's what they said last time." Then she jumped. The sky swallowed her whole. The world roared around her, wind, fire, gravity. The burning plane spiraled above like a dying bird, raining metal. Harlow pulled her chute. It cracked open with a violent snap, jerking her upward. Her body jolted, air slapping her face, rain cutting her skin. Below, dark terrain stretched endlessly, forests, rivers, mountains cloaked in mist. No landmarks, no lights. She hit the ground hard, rolled twice, came up on one knee. Pain flared through her shoulder, but she ignored it. She survived worse. The forest was silent, too silent. She tore off the chute harness, breathing steady. "Where the hell am I?" Her GPS device blinked once before shorting out. Jammed. Someone had planned this. She checked the sky. No drones, no lights, just clouds drifting, hiding whatever was still watching. Then a sound. Engines, low, distant, getting closer. She ran. Through the trees, through mud and rain, until her lungs burned and her boots slipped on wet roots. The sound grew louder, rotor blades now, helicopters. She dropped to the ground, pressing herself into the earth. Through the canopy, she saw them, 2 black choppers, no markings, scanning lights cutting through the forest. She whispered, "You're not Nay." They were looking for her, not to rescue, to erase. She moved deeper into the woods, every instinct alive again, the same survival rhythm that had carried her through forgotten wars. Her radio crackled faintly, just static at first, then a voice. "Reaper, do you copy?" She froze. The voice was female, calm, precise, American. "This channel is encrypted," Harlow said slowly. "Identify." "You don't know me," the voice said, "but I know you, and I know who shot down your plane." Harlow crouched behind a fallen log, then start talking. "Operation Shepherd's End wasn't containment," the voice said. "It was cleanup. They sent you in because they knew you finish it." "Who's they?" "The ones who made you, the Ghost Board." The name hit her like a memory she didn't want. That board doesn't exist. "That's what they want you to believe. You were their prototype, Harlow, their perfect asset. Controlled, erased, deniable. When Shepard defected, they didn't lose an operative, they lost control. Now they're making sure neither of you can talk." Harlow's pulse steadied. "Where are you?" "Closer than you think. Head north. There's an extraction point by the river." "I don't walk into unknown extractions." The voice paused, then softly, "You don't have a choice." Static swallowed the line. She stared at the radio for a long moment, then started moving north. The forest thinned after an hour. Ahead, a clearing, wide, silent, glimmering faintly under the fading daylight. In the middle stood a helicopter, smaller, civilian build, engine running. A single figure waited beside it, tall, dark coat, face obscured by shadow. Harlow slowed, rifle raised. "Lower it," the voice called. "You'll need me alive." It was the same voice from the radio. The figure stepped forward, a woman, maybe late 40s, sharp eyes that saw too much. Her accent was American but layered with years abroad. "Name?" Harlow asked. "Alina Shaw," the woman said. "Former intelligence oversight, former everything." "Define former." "Define alive," Shaw replied with a faint smile. "Get in." "I don't get in helicopters without knowing the destination." "Then we'll talk here," Shaw said, stepping closer. "But we won't have long before they triangulate this frequency." Harlow hesitated, then lowered her weapon slightly. "You said you knew who made me." "I do," Shaw said. "I helped design the Ghost Protocol infrastructure. Psychological conditioning, memory segmentation, operational wipes, all of it." Harlow's jaw tightened. "You built the system that erased me." "I built the system that was supposed to protect you," Shaw said. "But they turned it into control." "Who they?" "The Ghost Board, 5 directors. Black budget, untraceable funding, direct links to defense corporations. They answer to no one." "Names?" Shaw's eyes flicked to the tree line. "If I say them here, we die here." "Try me." "Leland Graves, Director of Strategic Oversight. He's the one who signed your termination file, and the one who ordered your plane shot down." Harlow felt the name like a blade. "I want him." Shaw nodded. "You'll get him, but not alone." "Why help me?" Shaw's gaze softened, just barely. "Because I've spent 10 years watching them bury the truth, and because I owe Shepard a debt." Harlow's eyes narrowed. "You knew him." "I recruited him," Shaw said quietly. "He wasn't the traitor they said he was. He found out what the board was doing. He tried to expose them. That's why they sent you after him." Harlow's breath caught. "You're lying." Shaw handed her a small data chip. "Proof. His debrief logs, he never sold you out. He tried to save you." Harlow took the chip slowly, her hand trembling for the first time in years. Shaw looked at her. "You have a choice, Reaper. Keep running or help me burn the Ghost Board down." Harlow stared at the chip. Shepard's voice echoed in her mind. "We were used." The pieces started to connect, the redacted files, the denied clearance, the attack. Shepard hadn't been the enemy. She'd been the weapon used to destroy him. She slipped the chip into her vest. "Where do we start?" Shaw's lips curved into something between relief and regret. Vienna. Graves is attending a defense summit. It's cover for a board meeting. We have a 48-hour window before they disappear again. Harlow nodded once, then we move. Shaw turned toward the helicopter. We'll have to keep it low altitude. No comms, no trackers. Once we lift off, there's no going back. Harlow glanced at the sky, gray, endless. Going back stopped being an option a long time ago. As they lifted off, the forest shrank beneath them, endless green fading into fog. Shaw glanced at her. One more thing. If you want Graves, you'll need to remember what they made you forget. Harlow frowned. You think I want those memories back? I think you'll need them to survive. The helicopter rose higher, swallowed by clouds. Harlow looked out the window. The horizon stretched endless, but all she saw were ghosts. Shepard, the missions, the lies. For the first time, she wasn't running from something. She was running toward it. And somewhere deep inside, the Reaper Queen stirred again, not out of vengeance but clarity. They'd turned her into a weapon. Now she was choosing her own target. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself from the ruins of other people's lies, you know what she felt in that moment. Some truths don't set you free. They set you on fire. How do you kill something that doesn't officially exist? The night over Vienna was crystalline and cold, the kind of cold that carried sound too clearly. Every footstep echoed. Every breath felt visible. Below the glitter of the city lights, Harlow Thorne stood on a rooftop opposite the Imperial Conference Center. Through her scope, she could see it. The glass facade, the rows of armored vehicles outside, the halo of security lights around the building that claimed to be hosting a defense technology summit. But that wasn't what this was. Inside, the ghost board was meeting, 5 directors, 5 signatures that had erased entire lives. And tonight, one of those lives had come back. Eleanor Shaw crouched beside her, tablet glowing faintly under a tarp. We've got 21 minutes before the main doors lock down. Once the internal sweep starts, we lose our entry window. Harlow adjusted her scope. Graves will be there. Shaw nodded. Penthouse floor, private suite. He never travels without a full strike team. Good, Harlow said. I'm tired of ghosts hiding behind glass. The older woman studied her. You sure you're ready for this? No, Harlow said, but I'm done waiting to be. They moved. Down a service ladder, across a rain-slick alley, through a maintenance corridor that smelled of bleach and metal. Shaw's forged ID cleared the first 2 checkpoints. The third required something different, Harlow's precision. She bypassed the retinal scanner with a tool she shouldn't have known how to build. Inside, the world changed. Marble floors, velvet curtains, chandeliers. Money and power masquerading as order. Harlow adjusted the comm in her ear. Security pattern. 2 guards every 20 meters, Shaw said. Cameras overlap at the corridor junction. 5-second blind spot. Plenty. They moved through shadows, each step calculated. Harlow's breathing slowed to that familiar rhythm, calm, methodical. It wasn't adrenaline, it was clarity. At the elevator, Shaw swiped her card again. A soft chime. The doors opened. Top floor, Harlow said. As the lift ascended, Shaw looked at her reflection in the metal panel. When this is done, what then? Harlow shrugged. That's the one question no mission ever trains you for. The doors opened onto silence. A long corridor stretched ahead, carpeted, sterile, lined with modern art that probably cost more than the lives they'd erased. At the end stood 2 guards. Harlow moved first. 2 suppressed shots sent her mass. They fell without sound. Shaw stepped over them. He's inside. They entered. The suite was vast, glass walls overlooking the sleeping city, a desk carved from black oak, monitors glowing softly. And behind them, Leland Graves. He didn't turn when he spoke. I was beginning to wonder when the Reaper would come home. Harlow leveled her weapon. Turn around. He did, slowly. Older than his file photo, but his eyes were the same, sharp, cold, certain. The kind of eyes that never saw consequences, only outcomes. I have to admit, he said, you were our finest creation. I'm not yours, she replied. Everything you are is ours, he said calmly. Every reflex, every silence, every scar, we built you. You erased me. Semantics. Shaw stepped forward, ended Harlow. Graves smiled faintly. You think killing me changes anything. The board isn't 5 people. It's an ecosystem. Cut one head off, 2 more appear. You should understand that you used to be one of them. I was never one of you, Harlow said. Weren't you? He asked softly. You obeyed every order. You killed whoever they pointed at. You only changed sides when it was you on the list. She didn't answer, because part of her knew he wasn't wrong. He took a step closer. You can't destroy the system, Reaper, but you can own it. Come back. Lead what's left of Ghost Protocol. You've seen what chaos looks like without control. Shaw hissed, he's buying time. But Harlow raised a hand, stopping her. You want me to become what you made me, she said. I want you to stop pretending you're anything else, Graves replied. You're a weapon, and weapons have purpose only when they're aimed. For a long moment, neither moved. Rain streaked down the glass behind him, tracing crooked lines over the city's reflection. Then Harlow lowered her rifle, just slightly. Graves smiled. There it is, clarity. But he misread it. Her other hand pressed a small transmitter against the desk. The light blinked red. Graves frowned. What is that? Insurance, she said. All across the city, feeds began to flicker, encrypted files, video evidence, audio logs. The data Shaw had been collecting for years went live, streaming to public channels, journalists, oversight committees. The Ghost Board's secrets weren't secret anymore. Graves lunged forward. You stupid. Harlow fired once. The bullet shattered the glass beside his head, sending a cascade of rain and wind through the room. Try to hide now, she said quietly. Shaw's voice came through the comm. Uploads complete, every file, they can't bury it this time. Graves looked between them, disbelief turning to fury. You think this changes anything? They'll brand you traitors, terrorists. Harlow stepped closer. Maybe, but at least the world will know what you did. She turned away. Behind her, Graves reached for a concealed pistol. Shaw shouted, Harlow. But the shot came too late. Graves froze, eyes wide, a hole blooming red in his chest. Harlow's gun smoked at her side. He stumbled, fell against the window, slid down slowly. His last breath fogged the glass. Harlow didn't look away. I told you, she said softly, ghosts don't miss. The alarm started seconds later, security breach detected, armed response inbound. Shaw grabbed her arm. We have to move. They ran through corridors, down service stairs, the building shaking with sirens. Outside, rain poured harder, washing everything clean. They reached the alley where they'd come in. Shaw was panting, adrenaline blazing. Extraction teams 3 blocks east. Harlow stopped. Shaw turned. What are you doing? Finishing it. Harlow, we did finish it. No, she said, we exposed them, but exposure isn't justice. Then what is? Silence, she whispered. The kind that comes after the truth is too loud to ignore. She handed Shaw the drive with the full data cache. You get this to the Oversight Commission. Make them listen. Shaw frowned, and you? Harlow glanced back at the tower, police lights already flashing, helicopters circling above. Someone has to stay behind to make the story believable. Shaw's voice broke. They'll kill you. Maybe, Harlow said, but this time they'll have to say my name. Shaw's eyes glistened. Reaper. Harlow shook her head. Harlow. Then she turned and walked back into the storm. Inside the building, chaos reigned. Security flooded the halls, shouting commands. Harlow moved through them like smoke, unseen, untouchable. She reached the top floor again, the suite still open to the night. Graves lay where he'd fallen, his blood mixing with the rain. She stepped closer, staring down at him. "You built ghosts," she whispered. "Now live with them." Outside, the first streak of dawn broke over the horizon, pale light cutting through the clouds. She stood at the shattered window, wind whipping her hair. The city spread beneath her like something reborn. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt done. Down below, she saw movement, Shaw's silhouette slipping through the streets, vanishing into the morning. The alarms grew louder, boots thundered behind her. Harlow closed her eyes. When they burst into the room, she was gone. Only the wind remained, and a single message scrawled across the glass with a bullet's edge. "Silence means surrender." Weeks later, across every news network, the story broke. A leaked intelligence program, a dead director, a woman known only as Reaper Queen. No official photo, no confirmation. Just whispers. Some said she died in Vienna. Others said she disappeared again, somewhere beyond reach, the ghost who burned her own shadow. But in a quiet refugee camp on the edge of Turkey, a woman with short blonde hair and calm blue eyes helped distribute supplies to displaced families. She never gave her name. She never stayed long. When a child asked her once, "Were you a soldier?" she smiled faintly, "Not anymore." He frowned, "Then what are you?" She looked at the horizon, endless, clean, free. Just someone who stopped letting others decide what she was. The boy nodded, satisfied. And for the first time, Harlow Thorne let herself breathe. If you've ever carried the weight of silence so long that speaking felt like rebellion, you understand her ending. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.